Good morning and buenos dias. And welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. My name is Polly Noel, and I've been a member since 1993, and I've served in many leadership positions, including on the board and church committees, including stewardship that you'll be hearing more about in the coming weeks. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information, and inspiration. Let's acknowledge this geographic place where we are currently located. Yanaguana, the home and traditional lands of the Coahuiltecan people, the original and indigenous stewards of this land to which we all belong, now called San Antonio in Bexar County, Texas. Let us also bear in mind that many indigenous peoples have not ever been recognized by our federal government, even as they continue to live among us today as vital contributors to and of our communities. Indeed, we speak these truths as one small step towards learning the diverse and multicultural community of communities we aspire to be. Today we have a very special lay-led service, and we look forward to having our minister, Reverend Mark, back in the pulpit. At our church, we strive to enact a universal love that binds us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice for all and for our planet. Our faith is inclusive, and all means all, y'all. If you are new or visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to fill out a visitor's card. Doing so will avail you of our announcements and email communications. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you. Wherever you are on your life's journeys, we hope you will find a place with us.
O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love to weave new patterns of truth and justice into a web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting.
And now it is time to welcome each other and exchange greetings of peace. Say hello to someone you know and don't yet know. Am I supposed to do the ball?
Yeah, if you want to bring us back.
And now it's time to sing our opening hymn, number 152, Follow the Drinking Gourd, in your gray hymnal. This is a traditional spiritual. Many spirituals are code songs. This one actually provides a map and a timetable for the Underground Railroad. Our candle today is lit by Jim Noel. Jim works for a library cataloging service company where he manages government printing office services. Jim lives with me and our 2 cats and is a great father to our daughter Olivia. He previously served as president of the board for First UU for 2 years and is currently serving on the stewardship committee and has provided volunteer tech support for the church for 20 or more years. When he is not singing in the First UU choir or with the San Antonio Choral Society, he likes listening to music, reading, cooking, gardening, walking, and traveling to both wildscapes and cityscapes. We are called as First Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all are welcome as blessings. May we strive to share grace and forgiveness with ourselves and each other in the hope of becoming whole and reconciled. Each week, we affirm this promise to live and behave as a community in covenant. We know that this aim takes work, and so we are committed to live and behave as a community in covenant. Let us recite our covenant that articulates our promises and binds us together in community. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
We are honoring spirituals today, and so I decided let's celebrate the spirituals that are in our hymnal. We will be singing, instead of an anthem, a normal anthem, we're going to be singing page 99, if you want to follow along with us. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Our soloist is Kyrie Harrison.
Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, Lord. Sometimes I'm almost to the ground. Oh,
It's time to share our joys and sorrows. I invite us to enter into our hearts and minds in a very intentional way, remembering that ours is a welcoming community that connects us, a spiritual community that enlivens us, a sharing community that amplifies our joys, a caring community that hears our sorrows and holds us in compassion. May we listen more deeply, see each other more clearly, and grow closer to each other each time we gather together. As a way for us to connect as a community, you are invited to mindfully come forward down the side aisles and light a candle, returning up the center aisle as suits your path to your seat. As you do so, please keep in mind that social distancing not only affords comfort to others, but saves lives. Now let us savor this moment of remembrance while Jaime plays our meditation music. And in our book of joys and sorrows, someone has shared and asking for positive thoughts to Natalie M. as she awaits news on graduate school, and congrats for her first acceptance to Georgetown University. And now I invite you to take a deep, cleansing breath and exhale. For all our joys, sorrows, and concerns, may we feel empathy and compassion. May the caring of our community offer a space of deep kindness, loving, and just action. And now it's time for story wisdom.
Good morning. So, y'all look a little different this morning. Well, I wonder, I can't quite put my finger on it. Did everybody get some extra sun this past couple of days? What's the deal? What is it? Oh. I always forget to take this off. Did somebody say something about, yeah, that'll do it, the glasses. I actually knew that. I was only testing you to see if you knew. So anyway, this morning we have something up here that has not been seen in a while. Does anyone remember what this is? Yeah, it's the Wonderbox. And some of you may have wondered what is in the box this morning. So I'm going to show you. It's more glasses. What do you notice about these glasses? Dane? Yeah, they're blue and red, kind of like my glasses are different. Could I have a couple of volunteers to come up and put these glasses on? Dane? And I don't know your name. A Melody or Harmony. Yeah, come on down and put these glasses on and see what you think. Can you sit up here? Are you Melody? That's Harmony. So there's actually something else in the Wonderbox. Some of you may remember Snowy. Yeah, you might remember naming Snowy back when we were doing things online. So let me ask you, Dane, what does Snowy look like to you right now?
It looks like it normally does, just like it's more
Kind of red?
darker.
Kind of darker? Okay. And what does it look like to you? What does she look like to you? Do you think you're seeing the same thing Dane is seeing? Yeah? I bet it looks a little more blue to you and a little more red to you. So today we're talking about something called culture. And culture, one of the definitions is how we view the world. And it's kind of like wearing different kinds of glasses. So does it look any different out there than it does usually? If you keep them on? No. It will probably look a little different. Okay.
It looks way different.
Yeah.
Like if you look outside, it's normally bright, but now it's just like
It's normally bright.
it looks like a giant fire, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have an age.
Yeah, it can be kind of strange to look at things a different way. So culture is kind of like these glasses. It's the way you perceive the world. And it's not just about the way you see, because everyone has culture, whether they see with their eyes or have to perceive the world in other ways. But one thing about culture that's not like the glasses is that culture, you can't take it off. It's always there. So you start to think maybe that the way you're seeing the world all the time is the way it really is, and not just one way of seeing the world, right? Okay. It's kind of like if you wore these glasses all day, every day for your entire life, you might think everything was kind of reddish in the world, and you might think everything was kind of bluish, and you might not even understand why somebody else would think something else. So sometimes what we want to do is try to, you want to try to see things a little different way. So let's see if we can do something here. There's yet another thing in the Wonderbox. Okay. Now, what if somebody with blue glasses were to take this red film, can you hold it up in front of your eye? Do things look different now? Yeah, oh, now it's more close to how Dane is seeing the world. Okay. Oh, and it's still all pink out the window. So by making a little bit of effort and figuring out a way, you can try to look at the world in a different way, maybe from the way you've learned culture in your family and home and everything. It just takes some thought sometimes and some effort. And I personally love blue, and I love red, and I think it's great that we have so many different cultures in the world because we can learn new and interesting things from people of different cultures. And thank you. Now we're going to sing you to the playground.
Our church has a larger purpose to support all of us in becoming more generous in giving of our time, talent, and treasure, all in a context of trust. May we succeed in fulfilling our goals, especially in our service to each other and to our wider community. For those of you viewing online, we invite you to make a contribution on our website, uusat.org, or at the link shown on the chat stream. You may use a credit or debit card, your checking or savings account, or send a check to our office made out to First UU. Those in the sanctuary may contribute to the baskets being passed by our ushers.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way, a long way, a long way from home.
Beautiful. May we see that there is enough for ourselves and all people. May we realize the true spirit of our UU tradition to be giving, generous, and kind to the people we know and the people we don't. May our blessings be multiplied through our sharing of them. Amen.
It's my privilege to introduce our guest speaker today. Kyree Harrison is a senior at UTSA majoring in vocal music education. This means he's had to have 5 classes with me. I'll never forget the first class that he was enrolled in. We post our syllabus on Blackboard, and our syllabus contains a calendar of when all the assignments are due. By the end of the second week, he had completed all of the written assignments for the entire semester. That's my introduction to Kyree. Now, I want to tell you about how this talk came to be. Last semester, I was doing choral literature for the very first time. And when I teach a class for the very first time, well, all the time, I want my students to give me input on how things are going. You know, like, are these assignments making sense? That kind of thing. And so I encourage them to give me that kind of feedback. This was the week before I had my surgery, at the end of October. And Kyrie raised his hand and he said, "Dr. Dill, there's no unit on spirituals on the syllabus." I was wondering why we didn't have that separate. And I told him it was because I had not figured it out yet. And the reason why I had not figured it out was at every time that we've done a spiritual in this church for the last 10 years, someone has come up to me afterwards and asked if it was appropriate for us to do so. Had one gentleman one time so angry about us doing that that he wanted to have a meeting with the minister and me. So, and this was all done under really, real concern that do we have the right to sing this? And so I explained that to Kyrie, and his response was, "Well, that's such a shame. There's such beautiful such beautiful songs, and we need to find a way to make everyone think through this problem." And so I said, "Okay, let's work on it together." Like I said, I had surgery the following week, and I was gone. And so the first week the semester comes around, and I thought, I wonder if Kyrie remembers that we were going to work on this together. And I get an email from him telling me, I've got it all done. And so we met, and by golly, he had it almost all the way thought through, and then we've met a couple times for us to go through it. I think you're going to be moved as much as I did with the work that he did on this subject. Kyrie.
Thank you, Dr. Dill, for that introduction. Just before we begin, I just wanted to say that it is okay and it is normal to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel ashamed or contemplative, but it should not stop there. This sermon is not to single out any cultural group, to make anyone feel bad, or to further divide. That being said, history and education is not always pleasant, but learning and being open to evaluating why it is unpleasant is one of the main reasons I feel like this is an important topic. As an African American man, I am not here to give you permission to perform spirituals. They are not mine to give. They belong to no one, therefore they are no one's to give. I'm here to tell you that it is okay. I'm not here to tell you that it is okay or not okay to perform them. That is not my place, nor is it anyone else's. I'm here to simply educate, empower, and hopefully open a door for self-reflection and an opportunity for us all to learn from one another by providing tools that will allow you to decide for yourselves, or with the assistance of informed individuals, whether or not it is an appropriate repertoire to perform in a given time or place. Just like anything in life, it is never the action itself that is judged, but the intent behind the action. That same concept has to be used when deciding whether or not to perform any piece of music, although this topic will be focused today on spirituals. In order to understand why it's such a sensitive topic, we have to understand cultural appropriation. The Oxford Dictionary defines this term as the act of copying or using the customs and traditions of a particular group or culture by someone from a dominant group in society. This definition has a very narrow lens of focus and doesn't give justice to the nuanced, ambiguous nature of the topic. For example, how do we define dominant group? Dominant group is in reference to the group that has the greater power within the context of a given scenario, which means that cultural appropriation can happen between marginalized and unmarginalized cultures because the power balance is within the context of the scenario, not in the context of how that overall group is perceived in society. Regardless of social status, appropriation is simply the act of taking ideas, objects from a given culture without the proper education, intentions, permissions, and respect that is valued within that culture. How does cultural appropriation affect marginalized groups? Whether it is done intentionally or unintentionally, with the intent to help a community, spread the culture of a community, or assert power over a group of marginalized individuals, cultural appropriation always almost harms the marginalized group. The marginalized culture lacks power, control, and/or resources necessary to maintain how its culture and people are presented or exploited and for personal monetary gain. The appropriated group is not privy to the same successful outcomes as the dominant group, and the dominant group benefits at the expense of the marginalized group, especially cases of stereotyping, minimizing, or removing important cultural context from the marginalized group. Allies and activists may claim an act of appropriation is their way of standing in solidarity with the marginalized group, but will not acknowledge the discrepancies and privileges between them, mainly because the appropriating group does not suffer from the weight of negative stereotypes, nor does it face the same or as drastic consequences for its action as the appropriated group. A thought-provoking example of this is one as seemingly as trivial as hair. African-American hairstyles in particular has faced much criticism in the workplace, in schools, and even in Olympic sports. The way we style our hair, or even the way that our hair naturally grows from our scalp, has been and still is considered unprofessional in many circumstances. So much so that there are laws put in place in order to protect us from discrimination and harassment. Now I just want you guys to take a moment to think about that. The hair that grows naturally from my scalp is deemed unprofessional and distracting. So much so that there are laws put in place to protect us from discrimination against it. Yet in popular culture, African-American hairstyles are seen as an accessory or a commodity by groups outside of its original culture that can be taken on or taken off as wanted, not being aware or taking seriously the discriminations that we still face on something as frivolous as our hair. What now that we have a clear understanding of how this affects, we can now talk about it in the context of spirituals. So first, what are spirituals and why is there such a sensitive topic surrounding its performance? Spirituals were originally folk songs inspired by African and Western European musical and religious traditions. These pieces were learned and passed down orally and were often used by slaves as work songs during their daily activities, ways to send messages and communicate across plantation, as we heard in Follow the Drinking Gourd, used to remember directions of the Underground Railroad, and as a way of expression during the times of slavery, thus intimately connecting these pieces to the history of slavery in the United States. During the 1800s, minstrel shows were rising in popularity among white audience groups. These shows were often performed by white actors playing stock characters modeled on slave stereotypes, and eventually they began to incorporate black singers, also wearing blackface, who are prohibited from singing for any other public audiences and in any genre other than spirituals. The current sensitivity we have in the performance of African-American art songs and spirituals stems from this nation's history of slavery and oppression and the legacy of these belittling minstrel shows that spread stereotypes and mock African-Americans to others. Although we now see the terrors and have moved away from these exploitations, in a sense, as a nation we are still burdened by its history and effects. So, who should sing spirituals? As I said, I am not here to give permission, but only to help guide and encourage informed decisions. To understand who should sing spirituals, we have to take a step back for a moment and not focus on the trees, but rather the forest, and ask ourselves the broad questions. Who has the right to sing any genre of music or play any role on stage? Should only rich white European males and females play the wealthy nobility in operas? Should African American, Indian, and Asian performers be limited to roles and music that only fits their physical characteristics, social statuses, and ethnic identity? Should someone who is not German or French perform art songs in these native tongues, although they have no birthright to the cultures? And the obvious answer to these questions is no. As artists and musicians, our job is to portray, to act, to express, to educate through our performance, and essentially to fool the audience into believing who we are that we portray on stage. All these things are achieved through deep study and research on any given topic. In order to perform a French art song believably, you must have a deep and working understanding of the language and performance practices associated with the piece. The same is true for spirituals. It's not about the color or ethnicity of the singer, unless it's explicitly stated by the composer, such as in Porgy and Bess, or if the text is soaked in nuances that are not appropriate for replication outside of a given cultural groups. Now, if you all could take a moment to turn into your hymns to either hymn 154 or 156, there's a perfect example of this. I believe it's 156. No, I apologize, 154 is hymn 154. Now let's just take a moment to read the text. No more auction block for me, no more, no more. No more driver's lash for me, no more, no more. No more peck of corn for me, no more, no more. No more pint of salt for me, no more, no more. And just ask yourselves, what situation would that piece of music be appropriate to perform? And then ask yourself, would it be appropriate if I sung that text? Performance is about the authenticity given to the piece of music being sung, the respectful choices in performance literature and practices, and sensitivity given to the selection of the repertoire from this genre. And in the case of spirituals, mainly the text. Now, why is it important for all races to sing spirituals? As singers, our first step is to analyze how artists confront our perceptions when portraying a character that differs from our own identity. This artistic process involves internalizing layers of text and their nuances and expressing their interpretation through music. We must be guided by the composer's musical interpretation of the text in order to create a performance dramatically committed and coherent. You must do more than sympathize with the music, but have the necessary working knowledge of the piece in order to empathize with its content and textual references. The sometimes painful but necessary work of honoring fellow human beings, as well as your own culture, means the willingness to embody and identify with the discomforts of human history, to allow yourself to feel the grief, and question various cultural portrayals as to if they are appropriate, necessary, and are nuanced in the performance practices of spirituals or any other piece of music. Are you doing so to honor culture? And if so, what aspects of that culture are you looking to honor? What is a question that I normally that get asked is it okay to sing spirituals to honor the music of Black people? And the answer to that is, well, Black people do not only write spirituals. We wrote and still do write music in all genres: classical, blues, gospel, musical theater, psalm, jazz, opera, atonal, choral, etc. So when you say, I am picking the spirituals to honor the music of Black people, as well as your intentions may be, good intentions mean nothing when rooted in a place of ignorance. Through that ignorance, you are further marginalizing the abilities and talents of Black people, because essentially you are saying is that the only music that is worth honoring are spirituals. The only substantial contribution that Black people have made to music is that of spirituals, and that ignorance affects an entire culture and can be easily remedied by education, reflection, and evaluation. If you want to honor the music of Black people, there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. But you have to acknowledge and expand on your education and honor all the music. You can easily perform Hound Dog, originally written and recorded by Big Mama Thornton, who in her time was often cheated out of success, pay, and royalties due to inequalities. You can perform hymns by the likes of Charles Titley, who was not only a talented hymn writer, but a pastor who helped those in need by supplying hundreds of hot meals and hot showers to the homeless in the basement of his church. You can even perform music by Beyonce, who not only has an endless list of musical achievements, but is the highest paid female actress and the first non-model, non-athlete to appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Perform music by the likes of Florence Price or George Bridgewater, who composed breathtaking symphonies in classical music. But because of racial policies at the time and in the music world, their art was rarely performed, and so was never given the same recognition or importance simply because of the color of their skin. If you want to honor the strength of Black people and pay homage to the struggles that we face, or stand in solidarity with us as we are forced to navigate a world that still does not fully accept us, and you are wanting to say through your music that, yes, I understand where your pain resides. I understand that the role that my culture or other cultures have played in making you feel less than human and having to fight for the basic necessities to this day that others can receive so easily. I understand your anger and rage, and I sincerely respect the strength of your culture to not be broken by it, to still wake up every morning with hope and a drive. I may not be able to change history, and I will never feel what it is like to walk in your shoes, but I hear you. I feel you. I respect you, and this is my way of showing it through performing spirituals, through doing so in an educated manner that shows you that I am willing to do the hard work of looking into my soul and the actions of this country and spreading the healing power of the music that helped your people through one of the most disgusting periods of forced human servitude and genocide to date in this country. And to stand to show you, although we are not equals in society, we are equals in faith, and I stand with you. If that is your mindset that you have and want to share with those around you, then choose spirituals and do them justice. Give them the same care, respect, and attention that you would give to a performance of Bach or William Byrd, because you are doing more than just singing a piece from an era that is no longer existent. You are representing and presenting the fluid history of a culture of people who live what you are singing about, who heal by using the music that you are singing. So it is your duty, if you choose to accept it, to do so with respect and honor to those attributes. Thank you.
Please rise as you are willing and able to sing hymn number 141, I've Got a New Name. Go your ways, knowing not the answer to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know. Namaste.